The holographic display flickered as Professor Nixis adjusted her gravitational stabilizers, her crystalline form catching the light of 3 moons through the lecture hall's transparent dome. 200 students of various species watched with compound eyes, sensory tentacles, and optical processors as she prepared to begin the most controversial lecture of the academic cycle. "Today," she chimed, her crystalline resonance filling the hall, "we discuss why Section 731 of the Galactic Charter exists." The professor's facets dimmed slightly. The Human Containment Protocol. A rustle of appendages and emanation of pheromones swept through the classroom. Humans were rarely discussed at the Galactic Academy of Sciences, despite being one of the most studied species in secret. Zrith, a gelatinous third-year student, raised a pseudopod. "Professor, the official records state humans are quarantined because they're pre-FTL primitives. Is that accurate?" Professor Nix's crystalline structure emitted a low, haunting resonance that her students recognized as laughter. "Official records, young one, are often written by those who wish to sleep soundly at night." She gestured, and the holographic display filled with images of a small blue-green planet, Earth, humanity's cradle. "When our scout ships first detected their electromagnetic emissions, we expected another few centuries before first contact would be necessary. We were wrong." The images shifted to show primitive human spacecraft. They had barely reached their own satellite when the Drachnid Empire decided to establish a foothold in that solar system. They assumed humans would either submit or provide minimal resistance. Her crystalline form darkened. That assumption cost them their entire invasion fleet. The class erupted in disbelief. Vex, a silicon-based collective intelligence, broadcast confusion. But historical records show the Drachnid Empire collapsed due to internal conflicts. "Oh yes," Professor Nixis agreed. "After their military leadership had to explain how they lost a fleet of 300 ships to a species that hadn't even achieved stable fusion power." Her facets pulsed with remembered anxiety. What the Drachnids failed to understand, what we all fail to understand, was that humans don't follow predictable patterns of technological development. The holographic display showed a primitive human fighter jet. While we were watching their space program, humans were developing in ways our predictive models never anticipated. They didn't need antimatter weapons to be deadly. They turned their planet's own magnetic field into a weapon. They hadn't mastered faster-than-light travel, but they had developed something far more dangerous: imagination. Zrith's gelatinous form rippled with confusion. "But surely they're limited technology." "Limited?" Professor Nixis interrupted. "Let me share something that's not in any official record. During the Drachnid invasion, a single human vessel, essentially a primitive chemical rocket with delusions of grandeur, took out a Drachnid dreadnought. Do you know how?" The class waited in silence. They noticed the dreadnought's shields operated on a frequency similar to their planet's microwave communications. So they broadcast every episode of something called cooking shows directly at the shield generators. The frequency resonance overloaded the entire system. A mechanical student's cooling fans whirred in distress. They defeated advanced technology with food preparation instructions. Precisely. Professor Nix's structure brightened. "That's why humans are so dangerous. While we focus on logical progression of technology, humans ask, what if? They don't see limitations. They see possibilities. They don't follow rules. They rewrite them." The professor projected a new image, showing the human space station. "When we finally established diplomatic contact, do you know what they said? They apologized for the cooking show incident and offered to help improve our shield designs. They had already figured out how to prevent that vulnerability and were willing to share the solution." The class sat in stunned silence. The Human Containment Protocol isn't about protecting the galaxy from primitive humans, Professor Nixis concluded, her crystalline form pulsing with serious overtones. "It's about giving the rest of us time to catch up to their way of thinking. Because make no mistake, they're not contained. They agreed to stay within their solar system because they're fascinated by their own development. They're watching entertainment broadcasts, creating art, and playing games. And every day, they're thinking of new ways to do the impossible. As the lecture concluded, Professor Nixis noticed a small data crystal had materialized on her desk. The message inside was brief. "Lovely lecture, Professor. Though you forgot to mention our development of quantum pop-up ads. Human Internet Defense Force." She quickly dissolved the crystal, her facets cycling through patterns of amused resignation. This was exactly why humans were both terrifying and fascinating. They had probably been monitoring her lectures all along, just because they could. The real question wasn't whether humans would eventually join galactic society. It was whether galactic society was ready for humans. After Professor Nix's revelatory lecture, Zrith and Vex found themselves in the deepest sublevel of the Academy's restricted archives. Their faculty access codes, obtained through what Vex insisted was creative data interpretation, got them through the quantum locked doors. "Are you sure about this?" Zrith's gelatinous form quivered nervously. "Accessing classified human incident reports is technically a violation of Section 731 of the Galactic Charter. Subsection Ignorance is bliss." Vex finished, their silicon nodes glowing with excitement. "But after that lecture, how can we not investigate?" The archive chamber hummed with ancient data crystals, each containing carefully preserved records of human encounters. Vex interfaced with the central terminal, their consciousness spreading through the database. "Here," they announced, projecting a holographic recording. The Helios incident. The projection showed a massive solar research station, its crystalline arrays pointed toward a star. A robotic archivist's voice narrated. "In response to an imminent solar flare that threatened 3 populated systems, the Galactic Council deployed their most advanced solar manipulation technology. Estimated success rate, 0.001%. Then the humans arrived." The image shifted to show a tiny vessel, barely larger than a transport pod, approaching the station. The archivist continued. "The human ship, apparently named Hold My Beer, translation uncertain, requested permission to assist." Zrith watched in fascination as the human vessel deployed what appeared to be primitive satellites around the star. "What are they doing?" "According to the records," Vex replied, scanning the data, "they called it solar parkour. They used the satellites to create a gravitational slingshot effect, redirecting the solar flare into a controlled loop that eventually collapsed on itself." "That's impossible," Zrith exclaimed. "The energy calculations alone would take 3 minutes, according to the humans. They apparently solved it using something called back-of-the-napkin math while watching entertainment broadcasts." The recording shifted to another incident. A massive creature of pure energy threatened a colonial world. The Galactic Council's most powerful weapons passed harmlessly through its form. "The Lumineth Crisis," Vex narrated. "Watch what the humans did." A human ship approached the energy being, broadcasting what appeared to be music. They discovered the entity was actually a lost consciousness composed of electromagnetic waves, Vex explained. So they used something called dubstep to communicate with it. The bass drops apparently translated perfectly into its language. Zrith's form rippled with disbelief. They defeated an energy being with musical vibrations. Not defeated, befriended. It now works as a nightclub DJ in their Saturn colony. As they delved deeper into the archives, a pattern emerged. The gravity well incident, where humans turned a black hole into a propulsion system. The quantum coffee maker, which accidentally proved string theory while trying to brew the perfect espresso. The great space duck migration, where humans successfully redirected an entire species of spacefaring creatures by convincing them that Jupiter was a premium vacation resort. "Look at this one," Zrith pointed with a pseudopod. The diplomatic incident of 2157. The recording showed a formal gathering of Galactic Council representatives. A human diplomat had apparently attended by mistake, having misread their exclusion notice as an invitation. Rather than cause an incident, they convinced the council to turn the meeting into an impromptu dance party, during which 3 centuries-old conflicts were resolved through what the humans called dance-off diplomacy. But this is what really got them contained, Vex said, pulling up the final record. The homework incident. The projection showed a human education facility. A student, facing a complex physics problem, had apparently decided that if the math was too difficult, they would simply alter local spacetime to make the equation correct. They changed universal constants to avoid doing math. Zrith's entire form paled. Temporarily, Vex clarified. They changed them back after getting an A+ on the assignment. But it was this casual manipulation of reality that made the council realize humans needed supervision. A soft chime echoed through the archive chamber. Another data crystal had materialized, this one playing a short message. Thanks for the interest in our history. P.S. That homework thing. We totally could have solved it normally. We just wanted to see if it was possible. Human Education Division. Zrith and Vex quickly exited the archives, but not before downloading copies of everything they'd found. As they emerged into the academy corridors, they couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't really accessed classified files at all. The humans had probably wanted them to see everything. You know what's really terrifying? Vex mused as they headed back to their dormitories. All of these incidents, they're probably just the ones humans thought were boring enough to let us find. Somewhere in Earth's solar system, a group of humans monitoring the archive access smiled. Operation Let Them Think They're Sneaky was proceeding exactly as planned. They made a note to update the archives with some of their more creative solutions. After all, it was only polite to keep the galactic community entertained. Professor Nixis found her next lecture interrupted by an unexpected guest. Grand Archivist Telix, their quantum crystalline form darkened with concern. Your students accessed the restricted archives, they stated, not a question but an accusation. Did they? Nixis responded, her facets gleaming with innocence. How fascinating. This isn't a joke, Nixis. They're diving into human psychology. Do you realize how dangerous that is? Before she could respond, her lecture hall's holographic systems activated independently. A message floated in the air. Actually, we find it flattering. Human Psychology Department. Telix's form nearly shattered in shock. They're in our systems. They've always been in our systems, Nixis chimed softly. They just usually pretend not to be, to make us feel better. Meanwhile, in the Academy's psychology lab, Zrith and Vex had moved beyond mere historical records. They were analyzing human psychological warfare techniques, or trying to. This can't be right, Zrith bubbled, reviewing the data. According to these reports, during the Proxima Centauri standoff, humans defeated an entire battle fleet by convincing them they were characters in something called a reality show. Vex's processors whirred. Apparently, they'd broadcast fabricated drama and conflict among the fleet's commanders, complete with narrative arcs and plot twists. The fleet was so invested in their own storylines, they forgot about the invasion. But that's not even the strangest part, Zrith continued. Look at the Titan mining dispute. Humans resolved it by introducing both sides to something called fantasy football leagues. The competing corporations got so caught up in their sports rivalries, they accidentally signed a peace treaty while arguing about draft picks. The laboratory's analysis systems struggled to process human decision-making patterns. Every simulation crashed when trying to predict human responses, because humans consistently chose options that shouldn't have existed. Here's what I don't understand. Vex mused, their silicon nodes pulsing with confusion. Humans know they're being studied. They know we monitor them. But instead of being paranoid or defensive, they treat it like entertainment. A new data stream appeared on their screen. Well, yeah, you guys are adorable when you try to figure us out. Human Behavioral Studies Division, Entertainment Branch. Before they could react, More messages followed. Plus, it's great practice for our kids' science projects. Human Education Department. Don't forget the meme potential. Human Internet Culture Division. We've got a betting pool on your next theory. Human Speculation Society. Zrith's form rippled with realization. They're not just accepting being studied. They're studying us, studying them. Exactly. Professor Nixis appeared in the doorway, Grand Archivist Telix hovering nervously behind her. That's what makes humans truly unique. They turn everything, even being contained and studied, into an opportunity for learning and entertainment. She projected a series of images showing human responses to galactic containment protocols. They had turned monitoring satellites into interstellar art galleries, converted containment barriers into solar sail racetracks, and repurposed warning beacons as navigation points for something they called extreme space geocaching. The problem isn't that humans are dangerous, Nixis explained, her crystalline form resonating with excitement. It's that they're endlessly adaptable. Give them a rule, they'll find a creative way to work with it. Give them a boundary, they'll turn it into a playground. Give them a problem, and they'll solve it in the most entertaining way possible. Telix finish, their tone mixing resignation with admiration. Do you know what they did when they discovered our first monitoring probes? They reprogrammed them to broadcast something called cat videos back to our research stations. Another message appeared. Those cats worked really hard on their performances. Human Feline Appreciation Society. But here's what truly terrifies the Council. Nixis continued. Humans don't just think outside the box. They question why the box exists, redesign it for better efficiency, turn it into an art project, and then write a philosophical treatise about the nature of boxness, all while making jokes about thinking inside the box. The laboratory systems suddenly began playing a recording. Humans singing something they called the Galaxy's Study Buddies theme song, apparently composed specifically for the alien researchers studying them. Zrith and Vex exchanged looks, or their species equivalent of looks. Professor, Vex asked carefully, are we actually containing humans, or are they just letting us think we are because they find it amusing? Before Nixis could answer, every screen in the laboratory displayed the same message. Why not both? Human Containment Compliance Department, Entertainment Division. Grand Archivist Telix's form dimmed in defeat. Do you know what the most dangerous thing about humans is? It's not their creativity, their adaptability, or even their bizarre solution patterns. It's that they're having fun. The entire galaxy is trying to understand and contain them, and they've turned it into a collaborative entertainment project. Correction. Professor Nixis chimed, her facets bright with amusement. The most dangerous thing about humans is that they're making us have fun too. As if to prove her point, the laboratory systems began playing what humans called a blooper reel of failed containment attempts, complete with humorous captions and something they called a laugh track. Somewhere in the Sol system, the human monitoring team added another tally to their best reactions to human psychology scorecard. They were particularly proud of the theme song. The incident began, as many involving humans did, with what they would call a slight miscalculation. A research vessel from the Academy, carrying Zrith, Vex, and Professor Nixis on what should have been a routine gravitational field study, experienced what their systems labeled a quantum hiccup. One moment they were safely outside the human containment zone. The next, they were drifting near a human space station orbiting Jupiter. This is impossible. Grand Archivist Telix's panic transmission crackled through their comms. The containment barriers are absolute. They're based on fundamental laws of physics. Ah, a cheerful human voice broke in. About those fundamental laws. We've been meaning to send you an update. They're more like guidelines, really. This is Jupiter Station Omega, by the way. Welcome to the neighborhood. Professor Nix's crystalline form vibrated with both terror and excitement. The human containment zone was absolutely forbidden to academic vessels. The penalties for breaching it were theoretical, mainly because no one had ever managed to do it accidentally. No need to panic. The human controller continued. We detected your approach about an hour ago. Would have warned you, but honestly, we were curious to see how you'd handle the quantum fold. Nice navigation, by the way. Zrith's gelatinous form rippled nervously. The quantum what? Oh, right. Sorry, forgot that's not common knowledge out there. See, space-time gets a bit funky around Jupiter. Something to do with all the experiments we've been running. Don't worry, it's perfectly safe. Mostly. Would you like a tour? Before anyone could respond, their ship was enveloped in a gentle tractor beam, guiding them toward a docking port that somehow hadn't been there a moment ago. That's not possible. Vex's silicon nodes pulsed rapidly. The station's architecture is shifting in real time. Yeah, we got bored with static structures, the human explained. The whole station's modular now. It rearranges itself based on efficiency algorithms and, occasionally, aesthetic whimsy. Today it's feeling sort of baroque. As they docked, they were greeted by a human wearing what appeared to be a Hawaiian shirt under their spacesuit, a detail that would later feature prominently in Professor Nix's report, filed under Inexplicable Human Characteristics. Dr. Jameson. They introduced themselves, head of Xenocultural Relations and part-time space-time origami enthusiast. We've been following your research on human psychology. Great stuff, though you missed some of our best bits. You've been following our research. Telex's voice squeaked through the comms. But those are classified academic files. Oh, sure, Dr. Jameson grinned, leading them through corridors that occasionally rearranged themselves. We classify them ourselves. Makes things more interesting that way. They entered what appeared to be a massive research center. Humans in various states of casual dress worked alongside robots, holograms, and what appeared to be several sentient AI constructs wearing party hats. Welcome to what we call the playground, Dr. Jameson announced. This is where we test the impossible before making it merely improbable. They watched as a team of humans used what looked like gaming controllers to manipulate a miniature black hole. Another group was teaching quantum particles to dance. In one corner, someone had apparently created a small universe in a coffee cup and was using it to brew what they claimed was the perfect espresso. But the containment protocols, Professor Nixis managed to chime weakly. The barriers. Oh, those. Dr. Jameson waved dismissively. We helped design them. Figured it would make everyone feel better if they thought we were safely contained. Plus, it gives our engineering students good practice in barrier maintenance. Did you know your latest upgrade had a smiley face hidden in its quantum signature? Zrith and Vex exchanged alarmed looks as they realized the implications. The humans hadn't been contained. They'd been playing along, using the galaxy's attempts to restrict them as both entertainment and educational opportunities. Here's the thing, Dr. Jameson continued, leading them to an observation deck overlooking Jupiter's swirling storms. We could have fought the containment protocols, could have argued for our place in the galaxy, but we realized something. We do our best work when people underestimate us. Plus, they grinned, it's way more fun this way. A small robot zoomed past, chasing what appeared to be a quantum probability field that had taken the shape of a cat. Schrödinger. Dr. Jameson called out. Stop teasing the cleaning bots. That's a quantum probability field. Vex's processors nearly overloaded. You can't domesticate quantum mechanics. Can't. Dr. Jameson raised an eyebrow. Have you met humans? Can't is basically a dare for us. We once taught a black hole to fetch. As if to demonstrate the point, a nearby researcher casually tossed a ball of pure energy across the lab. It bounced off 3 impossible angles before landing perfectly in a coffee cup, improving the coffee's flavor in defiance of several universal constants. The real question, Dr. Jameson said, suddenly serious, isn't whether we're contained. It's whether the galaxy is ready for what happens when we decide to stop pretending we are. A message appeared on every screen in the station. Spoiler alert, we've got some really cool stuff planned. Human Department of Galactic Surprises. Professor Nixis realized, with a mixture of terror and delight, that every theory they had about containing humanity had been completely, wonderfully wrong. They hadn't trapped humans in their solar system. Humans had turned their solar system into the galaxy's most advanced research and development lab, all while letting everyone else think they were safely restricted. As they prepared to return to the academy, Dr. Jameson handed them a small device, a quantum espresso machine, they explained. For your break room, don't worry about installation. It'll install itself when it feels like it. Oh, and don't be strangers. Next week, we're teaching dark matter to sing. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was in chaos. Representatives from 1,000 worlds argued over the revelations from Jupiter Station, their various forms of communication, creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, pheromone bursts, and quantum fluctuations. Professor Nixis stood at the podium, her crystalline form steady despite the pressure. Behind her, Zrith and Vex displayed evidence from their accidental visit, though by now everyone understood there were no accidents when it came to humans. Distinguished representatives, she chimed, her resonance cutting through the noise. We've been approaching this all wrong. The human containment protocol isn't failing. It never existed in the first place. The council chamber erupted again until a new voice cut through the chaos. She's right, you know. Dr. Jameson materialized in the center of the chamber, their Hawaiian shirts somehow more prominent in hologram form. Several council members fell out of their gravity fields in shock. How are you broadcasting here? The council leader demanded. This is a quantum-secured chamber. Is it? Dr. Jameson grinned. We've been attending these meetings for years. Where did you think all those convenient coffee breaks came from? The council leader's tentacles twisted in realization. The refreshment replicators. Great programming practice for our culinary students. Dr. Jameson nodded. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to get coffee just right across quantum space. But why? Another council member asked. Why pretend to be contained? Partly because it was funny, Dr. Jameson admitted, but mostly because we needed time. Time to understand ourselves, to develop responsibly, to figure out how to be good neighbors in a galactic community. They gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic displays showing human achievements, not weapons or warships, but medical breakthroughs, environmental restoration projects, and innovations that defy classification. While you thought we were contained, we were containing ourselves, learning, growing, teaching quantum physics to cats. You know, the important stuff. Professor Nixis stepped forward. The humans haven't just been advancing technologically. They've been preparing culturally, ensuring they could join galactic society without accidentally breaking it. Though we do occasionally bend it a little, Dr. Jameson winked. For science, of course. Zrith bubbled excitedly. They turned their entire solar system into a laboratory for the impossible. And a pretty good theme park, Dr. Jameson added. You should see Mars on weekends. The council leader's appendages waved in confusion. But the barriers, the containment fields, are now part of the Sol System Historical Preservation and Entertainment District, Dr. Jameson announced. We're thinking of adding a gift shop. What happens now? Someone asked the question everyone was thinking. Dr. Jameson's hologram smiled warmly. Now we stop pretending. We've prepared some proposals for cultural exchange programs, scientific collaborations, and an interstellar food festival. Turns out quantum gastronomy is a hit across multiple dimensions. Screens appeared before each council member, displaying detailed plans that somehow incorporated each species' preferred method of information processing. The quantum crystallines received crystalline data structures. The energy beings got pure thought patterns. The silicon-based life forms received perfectly optimized code. We've also taken the liberty of upgrading your council chamber, Dr. Jameson added casually. The walls aren't actually walls anymore. They're semi-sentient space-time constructs that double as universal translators. And yes, they do give hugs if asked politely. The council chamber sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. Humanity hadn't been confined. They'd been quietly revolutionizing the fundamentals of existence while sending cat videos to their watchers. Oh, and one more thing. Dr. Jameson's hologram began to fade. We're hosting an open house next month. Jupiter Station's putting on a production of The Galaxy's Got Talent. Turns out black holes are surprisingly good at jazz. As the hologram disappeared, a final message appeared. Don't worry too much about the future. We've run the simulations, all 14,605 of them. This is the fun one. Human Department of Galactic Integration and Entertainment. Professor Nixis turned to her students, her crystalline form glowing with amusement. And that, young ones, is why we never actually contained humanity. We just gave them a stage, and they turned the entire solar system into the greatest show in the galaxy. Somewhere in Sol system, in a station that might or might not exist depending on how you looked at it, Dr. Jameson sat back in their chair, sipping quantum coffee that tasted like starlight and possibilities. On their desk, a small quantum probability field purred contentedly, having taken the shape of a cat wearing a tiny Hawaiian shirt. You know, they said to no one in particular, we should probably tell them about the dragons we've been breeding on Venus. A message appeared on their screen. One revelation at a time, boss. One revelation at a time. Human Department of Dramatic Timing. The galaxy would never be the same. But then again, with humans involved, it never had been.